Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 17th December 2020. These are the articles for the day. The article is taken from the Indian Express and it is titled What's Emergency Use Approval? So, as we know that we are battling the COVID 19 crisis across the world, the race for vaccine is very important, and it is in this context this news becomes all the more important. So, we have a news that the US drug maker Moderna has applied for emergency approval. Similarly, in our country, the Serum Institute, which is expected to roll out the AstraZeneca's vaccine in our country, has given out a news that it is seeking a approval for emergency use. Now let us understand what this actually means. In our country, there is an organization called CDSCO or CDSCO as it is commonly called. It stands for Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. It is the regulatory authority with respect to approving vaccines, medicines, and even diagnostic tests and medical devices. The reason why vaccines have taken a long time is because the side effects are generally studied very elaborately, and the long term consequences of giving a certain vaccine to a patient or a normal healthy person is assessed over a long period of time. Just to put things into context, in 1960 the vaccine for mumps was given, and it took nearly 4.5 years for India to give approval for this mumps vaccine. The fact that this is the shortest time taken for approving a vaccine gives us the picture of how complicated and how elaborate this procedure is. Now, since they take such a long period of time, and now we are facing a global health emergency, the regulatory bodies across the world are giving a exemption to this. So they are giving this emergency use authorization, which allows the medicine or vaccine to be used on public at a large scale. If you take the case of US FDA, the regulatory body of USA, which deals with the approvals for these vaccines and other medicines, there are certain criteria for considering the emergency use authorization application from a vaccine maker. For example, they have set a certain criteria. Uh, the criteria is these companies which are coming out with vaccines claims should at least have done a formidable phase 3 trial. There are three phases: phase 1 and phase 2 will be done on a small population, phase 3 is done on a larger population, and there are certain other criteria which are not really important from UPSC perspective, but you just have to understand that the diversity of a general population is taken into consideration irrespective of their genetic makeup. And this is very important because irrespective of the genetic makeup, the vaccine should react in a uniform way. So that is the significance of phase 3 trials, and it should have at least 3000 participants with a efficacy ratio of nearly 50%. It should at least be effective in containing the disease to 50%. That is the minimum criteria for applying for emergency use authorization in the US. Then what is the criteria for India? Surprisingly, the organization does not have any sort of guidelines with respect to this emergency use authorization, which is a cause of concern. Without having adequate data, even in the past, so the organization has given approvals for using remdesivir and favipiravir, which are considered to be effective drugs in handling COVID, but they have proved to be of limited success. So, what are the vaccine candidates that are available in India at this moment? Firstly, we have the Serum Institute's Covaxin, which is developed in association with Oxford AstraZeneca. And then we have the Covishield, which is being developed by the Bharat Biotech Limited. And then Dr. Reddy's has associated with Russia's Sputnik vaccine in a hope that we can produce it in our country at a much cheaper cost. So, except the Serum Institute, no other vaccine maker is in a hurry to seek the emergency use approval in our country. It is to be seen how the organization, the regulatory body, that is CDSCO, will come up with a formidable mechanism to give this emergency use authorization. Now, one more news that is doing the rounds is that if a particular product or a particular vaccine gets a EUA in some other country, India will automatically give it. That is false, because we will still have to test that vaccine in our local population. Say, for example, in our country, the Serum Institute is coming up with its phase 3 data with up to 1600 participants. This is much lesser than the 3000 participants threshold that was set up in USA. So, in this context, how are we going to deal with this? That is the question that is pertinent right now. So, the next question is this the first time that emergency use approval is given? No. In 2009, there was an outbreak of swine flu or H1N1, and at that particular point of time, Tamiflu was given a emergency use approval. Similarly, we have had emergency use approvals for Ebola, Zika virus, MERS, coronavirus, etc. What are the implications of granting EUA for a particular product? Say, for example, if the user or the person who is getting vaccinated is not really confident about getting himself vaccinated with this product, he has the right to deny it. No government can impose a particular vaccine on a person. So, vaccine hesitancy is one problem across the world. We have proven data for a lot of vaccines, and due to a lot of influences, like say religious influences or evangelical enthusiasts who actually spread misinformation that vaccines are dangerous, have contributed to this phenomenon where people are not really interested in taking vaccines. Therefore, a lot of governments have mandated it that they should compulsorily take this vaccine. Now, when you have a EUA, that cannot be imposed, because the safety of the person is not yet completely determined. It is up to the person whether he wants to accept it or deny it. It is simply a matter of personal choice when you have a emergency use authorization. So that is the gist of this article. The second article for the day is taken from the Financial Express, and it is titled Insuring Crops and Ensuring Happiness. So this is a critical appraisal and the shortcomings in the flagship scheme of the Agricultural Ministry, that is Fasal Bima Yojana. So the frequent occurrence of rainfall deficits, dry spells, and a late onset of rainfall due to climate change has been one of the important determination of how the crop would fare in a particular season for farmers. So there was a need that was felt for crop insurance, and citing the significance of crop insurance, the union government has launched this PMFBY or Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So its objective is to increase production by incentivizing farmers by covering the risk for the crops which are produced, and the risk that they face due to all sorts of non-preventable natural risk from pre-sowing to post-harvest stage. So all non-preventable risks will be covered under this. So this scheme was launched for the first time in 2016, and millions of farmers have benefited from this scheme. However, in this March, there was a slight change that was made for Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which came into effect from the Kharif 2020 season. So, with the revamped PMFBY, the government envisages leveraging technology in a comprehensive manner to address the issues impacting timely assessment and payment of claims. Now, if you take a look at how this scheme is structured, both the center and states have to pay out premiums for both private companies as well as general insurance companies of the government. So, what was the need of revamping this? So, till now, it was a voluntary scheme only for non loany farmers, while mandatory for those availing crop loans. So, in the case of loany farmers, banks have been deducting their share of the premium. Generally, depending on the type of crop, it is somewhere between 2 to 5%. So, against the loan taken, compulsory basis is being seen as the criteria for taking this particular crop insurance, and the rest of the amount is given to the farmer. This 2 to 5% of the loan taken is directly given to the insurance company. Now, this is the problem because first thing is farmers did not take it very easily. The reason is these insurance companies are not in direct touch with the farmer. Plus, they don't even issue policy certificates also. So, what is the guarantee that the amount is actually going to the insurance company? How do we know that the insurance amount is actually being utilized for the purpose with which it is being charged by the banks? The second one is previously there was no cap on the central subsidy. So, as a result, what happened was none of the farmers were really involved in the scheme. They just delegated the responsibility to the center without taking up any responsibility. The third one is, which is the most important aspect, huge pendency of claims. There has been a huge pendency of settlement of state subsidy to the insurance companies. Like I've already told you, in this scheme, both the center as well as the states are supposed to pay out the premium for private as well as government insurance companies. Now, because of the arrears from the state, a lot of companies are facing a issue. So, this has affected the timely payment of claims. So, it is also important to mention here that delay in the release of state share of subsidy is the major reason for the delay in payment of claims to the farmers. So, state governments are actually responsible for this. In order to address this issue, the latest PMFBY 2.0 version has made this completely voluntary, even if you're taking a loan. So, from now on, insurance companies will have to make efforts to create real awareness among farmers to take the insurance and how it is important to take the crop risk coverage. Because of this model, where insurance companies are directly tying up with banks and taking away this premium, they are not even putting effort to educate the farmers regarding the need of this insurance. So, since center is paying out a lot of money and states are not participating in this scheme, they have made it voluntary. The second one is the limit to the central subsidy, which is the second problem. This was also addressed. The cabinet has decided to cap the center's premium subsidy under the schemes for premium rates up to 30% for unirrigated areas and 25% for irrigated areas. The risk of crop failure in unirrigated areas is much higher, and being uh, concerned towards the farmers in these regions, automatically the center has ensured that it will pay out a larger premium than in the case of irrigated case. So, as far as the state participation is concerned, the implementation has been left to the states, and there is also flexibility to implement the scheme and give them the option to select any number of additional risk covers like prevented sowing, localized calamity, etc. In this article, what is being discussed is the lack of data to ensure timely dispersal of the claims. Even after this PMFBY 2.0, the reason why there is a delay in payments is because of lack of data dissemination. So, this is the next challenge for the government. So, in order to address this, the government has come up with CCE. The data that is required for insurance companies is called crop cutting experiments data or CCE data. This should be given by the states, but center is taking the lead in gathering this data and releasing it to the general public and general domain, so that experts can analyze the feasibility of this crop insurance per insurance companies. Now, if you take a look at the performance of the scheme and how much money the insurance companies have actually retained. So the companies have barely broke even in the first 3 years of the scheme, and in 2019, the claims was more than 200%. That is 213% in states like Madhya Pradesh. So this means that for every 100 rupees premium that the companies collected, they had to pay out 213 rupees. So this is a sort of a loss that these companies have made, but this can be treated as a off year. So uh, generally, during the times of natural calamities, when extreme events happen, the claims will be much higher than normal. This is a normal anticipated event. So we should not decide the future of the scheme based on this anomalies. So what the government must ensure right now is increase the ambit of this crop insurance as an idea by bringing awareness amongst the farmers. So that is the gist of this article.